Few cars are as storied as the Vette. In fact, 60 years ago, we got the first one. 50 years ago, the first Stingray version. And now it's all back together again for Gen 7. The 2014 Corvette Stingray. Let's take a tour of this new 7th generation Vette. First of all, proportions are about the same. And by the way, they point out they're remarkably close to a Porsche 911. I'd never really seen that in it. Look at the front of this guy. There's a lot of Ferrari DNA in here. I mean, this is a very different face. Easiest way to spot the new Vette. The hood is carbon fiber, very, very light. Same thing goes for the roof panel. All these guys have carbon fiber roofs. You can't see it, but underneath here, all aluminum frame and subframes, which is stock now on every single one of the new Vettes. And of course, a lot of these fenders and other panels are made of sheet molding compound, a high-tech plastic. So I'm not sure you can get a fridge magnet to stick to this car anywhere. Now, it gets real controversial back here. These taillights, this whole cluster here, is either the new look of Corvette, or if you're more of a doubter in the various chat rooms and forums, a travesty that is too much Camaro or Malibu. Very unique here. These are the trumpets of hell. These things go to a dual exhaust system out to 4 tips that has this mechanical actuator that opens up a valve back here for a whole lot more bellow and more flow. They say it can actually add 5 horse and 5 foot-pounds if you have the performance exhaust system. A little free flow does wonders. Okay, now the roof's a big story on this new Vette. All of the supposed hardtops actually have a lift-off roof. You can't get a true hardtop Vette, at least not yet in this 7th generation. If you can get these in body color, clear carbon, or for $1,000 optional, a clear smoked top. That could be kind of cool. Now let's put it away. You put this into these front clips, drop it in here, snaps into place. How do you get your luggage in and out of there? Well, the fronts are kind of like pivots, so you can still get here like it's a lid. Kind of clever and does not clobber too much of your rear cargo space. All right, the first big news about the new Vette is the cabin. They've upholstered basically everything. No hard plastic undersheeting is really showing except a very few places, and the texture there is nice as well. Now, you may have already noticed the other way they've upholstered this car. They've upholstered it with LCDs. This one carries Chevy MyLink. Nothing dramatically new here. We've seen this before in Chevy vehicles. Over here, though, is very different. This is the instrument panel for the Vette. The main panel is full of LCD, though notice you've still got a mechanical speedo and a mechanical fuel gauge and temperature gauge. However, what's in the middle there is very cool. You could either be in eco mode. Yes, there's an eco mode on the Vette. We'll talk about MPG in a minute. It's pretty darn good. Kick it again, you go to touring. This is kind of your everyday driving mode that isn't tuned down for eco. Hit it one more time, now you go to sport. Look what happens. You get very tachometer centric and you pick up 2 more virtual gauges for oil pressure and oil temperature, and your last click over to the right is the track mode. When you do that, you get a hockey stick RPM bar, and you also get your trap times, best, previous, and current, for actual track runs when you're using your launch control. In combination with that, I've got the best HUD yet on an American car. It's quite bright, and if I go through the information button right here, I can change it from the hockey stick tack, traditional tack. There are my G-forces. Who did 1.25 Gs? I wish I was on that ride. Now, our drive controls. The car I'm sitting in right now has an automatic, 6-speed automatic. This is a car they'll sell a lot of, but the more interesting car has an all-new 7-speed manual. We're gonna get some time with that in the road. They all have a mode selector right here, which, as I showed you, changes up the dash, but more than that, it changes 12 parameters of the vehicle, from the tip-in of the accelerator, transmission behavior, suspension behavior, how the limited slip behaves is electronically controlled on this car, and all manner of other things around the vehicle. So it really does change personality. Now, in the engine bay of the new Vette is an interesting story. Tale of 2 cities, one modern, one not so much. Here's what's modern. 6.2-liter V8, it's a Corvette. And it does have direct injection for the first time, as well as variable valve timing and active cylinder management. This guy can shut down from 8 to 4 cylinders. I'll talk about that in a minute. Here's what's old. This is still an overhead valve pushrod engine. They decided not to go with overhead cams because of height. The designers wanted to package this nose nice and low, and to add a stack of cams up here would have brought things up, about here. So the cam's buried down in the valley the way it used to be and keeps the top a little lower. Doesn't seem to hurt the numbers any. 455's the horse, 460 foot-pounds of torque. 0 to 60 for this car at about 3,300 pounds comes in around 4 seconds. A little under 4 if you get the Z51 performance package. Here's the real payoff. They got some good MPG out of this guy. 1729 with an average of 21. And a big part of that is because this guy runs on 4 cylinders, as I mentioned earlier, when it can. You may think that's kind of a limp home or cruising mode, but because this engine is so big, 4 cylinders of this, half of this guy, is still a pretty roaring engine. So they say this car can run on 4 cylinders a lot, even kind of in a performance way. First of all, the power delivery on this guy is real linear. Thundering, but linear. You don't get this big pop at the beginning. You've got a nice, even, fat torque and power curve, and that's what Chevy said they did with this guy, increasingly over the 6th generation. It doesn't come on alarmingly, but it comes on big. I hit that paddle, now I'm in rev match mode. Now watch this, I go into a downshift without touching the throttle. That's automatic, I didn't goose it. And it matches my RPMs. Now I gotta say this, it's kind of slow. I can do it faster than that, but if you're not great at driving a stick, especially with 460 on tap, this is a nice aid. Now Chevy says this car in stock trim will turn a G on the skid pad. On the autocross track, you really get a taste of that. It's much more directionally nimble than I recall a Corvette, at least the last time we drove one a couple of years ago. I'll tell you this, the driving dynamics of this car don't feel dramatically different than the last Vet we had, and there's a reason for that. The Corvette's still a Corvette. The layout is iconic. As a result, you're not suddenly going to have some mid-engine turbo V6 car with a Corvette. It's always going to kind of drive the way it drives. Well, you got big boots on this car, and you can just come around a corner all day long with that nice linear power. I mean, we're pushing it. And this car feels stuck right down, like a big old super glue factory leaked all over it. Okay, some downsides. It still is a relatively, shall we say, gutsy feeling in the interior. There's quite a bit of cabin noise. The vibration's definitely well managed, though. I gotta give them that. The shifter could be better. The clutch travel's nice, but this shifter's a bit much. Your top 3 gears, I believe, are overdrive. That's interesting, probably an EPA strategy. 5, 6, and 7, things get a little wandery out there. It's not as clean as I'd like it on that part of the gate. And the rev matching thing, like I say, I could do better. There's a lack of legroom on the passenger side. I'm 6'2", and I cannot ride comfortably there for more than about 20 minutes before it's claustrophobic. I can't get enough legroom. And it's still a little bit tight in here. I mean, Corvettes are not known for having a lot of space. They're not a big car, but something about this big, massive center structure here seems to make it more so. All day long. All day long. Now, the Corvette, for all its performance, remains, whether they want me to say this or not, a value leader. About $52 delivered for your base coupe. Add $5,000 if you want a convertible. Another paltry $2,800 to get to the hotter Z51 trim, and $1,000 for that clear lift-off top. That's optional above the base carbon fiber roof. The Corvette has not changed its essential DNA. It's a big old brawny front engine, rear drive, V8 American classic. But they've definitely evolved this car to a point that many thought it couldn't get just a few years ago.